The boardroom on the 42nd floor of Apex Global Sleek Manhattan headquarters carried an unnatural chill that Monday morning in early November. Outside, gray clouds pressed low against the glass, muting the usual city sparkle. Inside, 23 executives sat around the long, gleaming mahogany table in near silence. I stood at the front, charcoal suit immaculate, cufflinks catching the overhead lights, every detail of my appearance calculated to project quiet authority. For 18 months, my team and I had lived and breathed this $2.1 billion cross-border merger. We had modeled cash flows until the numbers blurred, negotiated term sheets through sleepless nights, navigated regulatory minefields in 3 jurisdictions. Today was supposed to be the signature, the moment the deal locked and both companies stepped into a transformed future. I stepped forward and extended my right hand toward Victor Langford, Meridian Capital CEO. At 61, Victor still carried the lean, predatory energy of a man who had clawed his way to the top of private equity through sheer force of will and sharper elbows. His reputation was legend: brilliant deal maker, merciless negotiator, zero tolerance for perceived weakness. I expected the crisp, professional handshake that seals transactions of this magnitude. Instead, Victor's eyes flicked to my hand, then back to my face. With a small, dismissive motion, like swatting away a fly, he brushed my fingers aside. "You don't deserve this deal," he said. His voice was velvet over steel, smooth, cultured, lethal. "Let's dispense with the theater. You're a consultant who happened to be in the right room at the right time. Meridian doesn't partner with middlemen. We acquire them." The silence that followed was absolute. My CFO, David Kwan, froze mid-breath. The lead partner from Sullivan and Cromwell dropped his Montblanc pen. It rolled once and stopped. Several faces turned away in discomfort, while others stared at the table as though it might offer escape. Heat surged behind my eyes, but I clamped it down instantly. I held Victor's gaze 3 deliberate seconds, cataloging the faint crow's feet, deepening with satisfaction, the slight upward curl at one corner of his mouth. He was savoring this, the public diminishment of the deal's principal architect in front of every key stakeholder. Something inside me shifted, not rage, but cold clarity. No outburst, no rebuttal, just the quiet, mechanical ignition of a plan that had been waiting for exactly this trigger. I would not shout. I would not beg. I would erase him, piece by meticulous piece. Victor leaned back in the high-back chair, crossed his arms over his bespoke Brioni suit, and delivered the final cut. "The deal is off the table. We'll pursue a cleaner counterparty, someone who understands their place." A ripple of murmurs broke across the room. Shock, confusion, a few stifled protests. My own team looked to me, faces drained of color. I gave them nothing dramatic, just one calm nod. Then I turned on my heel, footsteps even, and walked out. The heavy door closed behind me with a soft, final click. In my corner office, I drew the blackout blinds, dimmed the overheads to a single desk lamp, and sat motionless for 12 full minutes. Breathing slow, pulse returning to baseline. When the adrenaline had settled into something usable, I opened my laptop and began the real work. Every document, every thread, every version history. I pulled 18 months of correspondence. Initial teasers, NDAs, due diligence requests, red line drafts, side letters, regulatory filings, board presentations, internal Slack threads, encrypted signal messages between my team. I read with forensic intensity. Small fractures appeared almost immediately. A compliance exception Victor's team had dismissed as immaterial, an ambiguous material adverse change definition tucked into Section 8.4, revenue recognition assumptions that had squeaked past last quarter's audit by the narrowest margin. This was no longer emotion. This was architecture, dismantling arrogance one verifiable fact at a time. Elena, my assistant since the early startup days, knocked once and entered without waiting. 31, razor sharp, unflinchingly loyal. She placed a single sheet on my desk. "Accidentally forwarded from their executive alias 10 minutes ago," she said quietly. "I didn't open it. Figured you should." I waited until the door latched before reading. Victor to his inner circle. CC to no one outside the trusted few. The consultant believes he's irreplaceable. Laughable. Once we ink, I'll cut him loose entirely. Replaceable fluff. Send the revised term sheet tonight. No need to include him in the loop. Let him find out when the press release drops. Timestamp. 49 minutes after the boardroom humiliation. Digitally signed with his personal certificate. Careless. Hubristic. Gold. I printed 3 hard copies. 2 went into the fireproof safe bolted to the floor behind the credenza. The third I annotated in red ink. Dates, context, implications. Heart rate steady at 64 beats per minute. Mind already mapping vectors. For the next 26 days, I observed Victor with clinical precision. At Midtown power lunches, Tribeca private dinners, closed-door investor roundtables, he performed easy charm, firm handshakes, perfectly timed anecdotes that made everyone feel included, except anyone who questioned him. I logged the tells in an encrypted note vault on my phone. Absolute loyalty. CFO Rebecca Stein. Board members Harrington and Patel. Suppressed skepticism. Minority shareholder liaison Jameson. Junior M&A associate Claire Nguyen. Arrogance accelerators. Overt flattery. Unchallenged authority. Public praise from juniors. I wasn't hunting for revenge in anger. I was building a behavioral and documentary profile of a man who believed himself untouchable. One Thursday evening, alone in the office after everyone else had left, I opened a seemingly routine side agreement. Buried in Annex D was an escalation clause linked to antitrust clearance timelines. If the review dragged past March 31st, control of $212 million in escrow funds would flip to our entity automatically. My finger hovered over forward. Too early. Exposure of intent would collapse the entire structure. I closed the file, moved it to a triple encrypted folder named Phase 1 Contingencies, and exhaled. I stayed visible while becoming invisible. Routine requests flowed out. Historical audit work papers, full general ledger extracts for the last 3 years, internal control questionnaires, board minute excerpts. Nothing alarming. Each delivery arrived like another thread. Cross-referencing revealed accumulating anomalies. A $4.7 million advisory fee, wired to a British Virgin Islands entity with no corresponding engagement letter, a board resolution approving a $92 million credit facility, backdated by 17 days and missing 2 required signatures, expense reports showing Victor's wife and adult son on multiple business development, trips to Aspen and Street Barts. In public, I remain impeccably professional, nodding at Victor's quips during strategy calls, offering concise, supportive comments in emails. He relaxed further. He began calling me our diligent friend from the sell side with that familiar patronizing chuckle. Every smirk lengthened the fuse I was laying. Then the careless chain landed. Victor directing his team to bypass Meridian's legal department on a $78 million earn-out true-up. Just execute. Paperwork can follow. No need to slow momentum. No CC to general counsel. No risk committee memo. Only his name at the bottom. Thread saved. Headers intact. Forwarded to my secure archive. Alliances coalesced without fanfare. I never mentioned revenge. I asked quiet, precise questions in one-on-one conversations. Did the Q3 working capital adjustment strike anyone else as aggressive? Or have we modeled the earnout multiple under the new disclosure rules? Legal flagged inconsistencies. A VP in finance began looping me in on sensitive threads. Margaret Ellison, the iron-willed board director who had survived 3 CEO tenures, started pulling me aside. Walk me through covenant compliance one more time. Doubt spread like frost on glass. A rainy Tuesday afternoon brought the call I had been waiting for. Head of a $42 billion sovereign wealth fund, major Meridian shareholder, reached me on my private line. Off record, he said in clipped Nordic accented English. Langford's projections on the Southeast Asia platform feel inflated. I'm not comfortable. I offered no judgment. I listened. The seed took root. I began testing reactions in larger settings. What contingency do we carry if antitrust clearance slips into Q3? Victor dismissed it. We'll force it through. I noted the micro twitch at his temple. Colleagues started looking toward me when he overspoke. He boasted about a fully executed Singapore joint venture term sheet I knew was still non-binding. Another fracture recorded. In the deepest layers of the model, I uncovered misrouted CAPEX, undisclosed off-balance sheet guarantees on vendor credit lines, comfort letters issued to lenders without board awareness, screenshots, metadata, version histories accumulated. Then the decisive find, an internal control memo quietly reversing $50 million of Q2 revenue because key customer acceptance milestones had never been documented. Victor had suppressed it. My first tactical step stalled when Victor replaced the audit firm overnight. New perspective, better alignment. A flash of frustration quickly smothered. I pivoted, pulled every public filing on the incoming firm, mapped their known risk thresholds. Every defensive move he made only underscored the insecurity beneath the polish. I overheard him in the private elevator bank, voice low and venomous, berating the general counsel. I don't pay you to raise trivia. Sign it and get out of my way. Another landmine photographed and filed. I requested a standard enterprise risk summary. Inside, direct contradictions to Victor's last two earnings scripts. The documentary chain thickened. His chief operating officer began showing open irritation, jaw set, eyes rolling when Victor interrupted. Quiet leverage. A finance director caught me in the 41st floor pantry. He's jamming numbers that won't survive real scrutiny, she whispered. I absorbed every detail. Favoritism patterns, blind spots, personal triggers. She confirmed a debt covenant miscalculation that, if tripped, would accelerate $300 million in principal. Whispers began circulating without my intervention. Inconsistencies noticed. Timelines questioned. A major investor quietly commissioned an independent forensic review of Project Horizon. Pressure mounted. I submitted carefully curated documents to compliance framed as procedural refreshers. Many investigations triggered. Victor's temper flared in meetings, volume rising to mask uncertainty. Each outburst generated new, admissible records. I volunteered to quarterback the upcoming quarterly investor deck. Victor agreed instantly, expecting a victory parade. I built every slide to let discrepancies surface naturally. Subtle call-outs, comparative footnotes, waterfall charts that whispered truth. He skimmed. Hubris blinded him. On the call, he projected $1.1 billion in locked-in synergies. The underlying reconciliations told a bleaker story. Rumors of incoming regulatory inquiries reached him. Charm frayed, temper shortened. I remained outwardly supportive, inwardly logging every stumble. He reprimanded staff in front of witnesses, creating intimidation documentation. He attempted to reassign high-risk work streams. I adjusted evidence chains in real time. One reassigned vendor agreement exposed $18 million in unauthorized payments. Timestamp screenshots waited. A board member referenced my prior analysis in executive session. Victor dismissed me publicly. He's still licking wounds, which only elevated my standing among those paying attention. External auditors flagged $200 million in unreconciled intercompany accounts. Victor's composure cracked. He ordered rushed revisions, generating more traceable cover-up attempts. I steered conversations with surgical questions, allowing silence to amplify discomfort. A whistleblower emerged, alleging material misstatement approaching $1 billion. My archive already held the corroborating evidence. The investor Q&A session turned brutal. Numbers refused to reconcile. Victor stumbled through explanations. I sat motionless, letting the dead air compound. Financial journalists began emailing for comment, questions he could no longer deflect. Board-level summary reports, co-drafted in shadow, laid bare the cascading damage. Delayed product launches, counterparty trust erosion, mounting litigation risk. Compliance escalated to full-scope investigation. In desperation, Victor approved a $400 million emergency bridge facility without solvency certification or full board consent. The approval email, time-stamped, unencrypted, landed in my inbox minutes later. He delivered one final, swaggering investor update. Every word recorded. Inconsistencies screamed. Attempts to spin collapsed in real time. When he tried shifting blame to his longtime executive assistant for clerical oversights, I presented the chronological rebuttal. Email chains, approval logs, sworn witness statements. Fabrication exposed beyond recovery. The emergency board meeting convened at 7 a.m. the following Monday. Evidence presented methodically, contractual breaches, financial misstatements, reckless governance overrides. Victor's defense unraveled sentence by sentence. His last bluff, pointing at rogue actors in middle management, met unified silence. Overnight, his corporate credit lines froze. Key transaction approvals were rescinded. The $2.1 billion merger imploded under forensic weight. By 9:17 a.m., he was escorted from the building. Face ashen, security badge confiscated, empire collapsing under the gravity of his own arrogance. For days later, I re-entered the same boardroom. The atmosphere had shifted, respectful, measured, calm. Colleagues offered quiet nods of acknowledgement. Investors shook my hand with new weight. No victory speech. No gloating. The enterprise stood intact, structurally stronger than before. My reputation, forged in patience, precision, and unrelenting discipline, was now ironclad. Across the polished table, a senior sovereign fund representative met my eyes and gave one slow, deliberate nod. The final, unspoken certification of a victory won without a single raised voice.